And watch this space. We'll be back with more news. UAE suspending purchase of Zionist defense systems until government under control, media reports claim. Israel's Channel 12 revealed signs of a crisis between the UAE and Israel against the background of the actions of the extremist far right-wing Zionist government in Tel Aviv over the past month and a half. This prompted the Gulf state to suspend the purchase of Zionist defense systems. The channel quoted informed sources as saying that the actions that angered the Emiratis were mainly Minister of National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir's storming of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the attack on the Palestinian town of Hawara by settlers, and the statements of Zionist Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich calling for Hawara to be wiped out. According to the channel, UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed told Israeli officials, "Until we can ascertain that Prime Minister Netanyahu has a government that he can control, we can't work together." The channel noted that intelligence and security cooperation between Zionists and the UAE is, however, continuing. Channel 12 also noted that that UAE's decision to suspend its purchases were made after the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the Emirates was postponed, with a new date yet to be set. It also comes after Saudi Arabia announced this week that it restored relations with Iran after years of estrangement. According to the Israeli channel, the Prime Minister's office issued a strong denial of this news, calling the report baseless and saying that Israel and the UAE are constantly holding fruitful diplomatic contact, including today. And from the media line, UAE allegedly halts security deals with the Zionists, putting pressure on Netanyahu to stop judicial reforms. The potential risk to Zionist-Emirati relations may raise the political cost of moving forward with the judicial overhaul. Israel's Channel 12 News reported on Sunday that the United Arab Emirates plans to suspend some of its defense deals with Zionists in response to controversial statements and actions by the Zionist government. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a statement rejecting the veracity of the report and maintaining that there continue to be positive diplomatic relations between the two countries. Whether the specific report is true, the trend of increased criticism of Israel by Arab countries is evident. Even among those that recognize Zionist experts believe that this recent increase in criticism is meant to put pressure on Netanyahu to halt the judicial overhaul. Professor Yoram Meital, an expert on Middle Eastern politics at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, told the media line that recent events in Zionist Israel have brought relations between Arab countries and Israel to a boiling point. I will say here in this previous paragraph that the criticism by Arab leaders is meant to put pressure on Netanyahu to halt the judicial overhaul. That's assumption, you know. It could be, the pressure could be put on him to, because the Arab entities want to stop him from murdering and killing Palestinians, maybe? I mean, that's a valid reason. It really puts their government under heavy pressure with not only statements by ministers from the far right in Israel, but also with the tragic events like the one in the village of Hawara, Maital said. After 2 Israelis were killed by a Palestinian in the West Bank town of Hawara last month, Israel settlers staged a mass attack on the town and surrounding villages, killing 1 man and setting fire to homes, businesses, and vehicles. Maital said that the pressure from Islamic countries itself might not lead Netanyahu to walk back the judicial reform, but that it would intensify the pressure already being applied to the U.S. and by Zionist citizens. How exactly Netanyahu will respond to the mounting pressure remains to be seen. No one can tell whether Prime Minister Netanyahu would completely shut down the judicial overhaul process or just try to modify it, and if the modification would be enough to calm down the resistance within and outside Israel. Professor Jonathan Reinhold, head of the Department of Political Studies at Bar-Ilan University, described the criticism from the UAE as one of the several factors increasing the political cost of moving forward with the judicial reforms. Reinhold noted that Netanyahu is seen politically as a fantastic diplomat, fantastic in the security area, and fantastic economically. It would be a serious blow to his reputation for the UAE to pull out of the security deals. Yet, and again, there's this underlying narrative that the judicial overhaul has something directly to do with the UAE. I mean, it does in a way, but I think that the reaction is more so from atrocities, Zionist occupied government atrocities on Palestine. Maytal noted that the UAE's comment should be understood in the context of shifting Middle East dynamics. On Friday, Saudi Arabia and Iran announced that they would restore diplomatic relations, preventing Iran from gaining access to nuclear weapons has been one of Israel's foreign policy priorities, which Israel has addressed in part by attempting to turn other West Asian countries into partners in that cause. The Saudi-Iran deal is therefore seen in Zionist Israel as a major setback. It seems like the conciliation between the Saudis and the Iranians has left Zionist Israel alone with the UAE, Maytal said. If the report of an Emirati retreat from its close ties with Zionist Israel is true, he said, this context would make it even more significant. In the worst case scenario, the UAE could decide to cancel its diplomatic mission in Israel and call an end to normalization agreements, including those about borders, tourism, and cooperation in other fields, Maytal said. For now, Maytal said the situation's now gotten to the point I think that they're trying public diplomacy now just to protect their concerns or project their concerns about the developments in Zionist Israel, he said. We're not at the point where they're using all the cards that they have in their hands. This is the part that I think is most pertinent. It's that you can see these Islamic leaders aligning to show diplomatically that they disagree. And you can also tell that there will be further steps, that there's more to come. And I think that it is, in a sense, a trap, for the Zionist, for the Zionist government to see how they will react. And at this point, they're doing exactly what I think the Islamic leaders think that they will do, and that's just totally and absolutely continue to ignore. But there is a difference here. There is a difference. I think that the Zionist occupying government should recognize that difference and probably heed the warnings. I keep hearing from different Islamic factions, and if you hear the same thing from different people, they're united in that same thing at least. So I hear from Islamic groups and Islam, period, my patience is running out. That's what I've heard multiple times. My patience is running out. My patience is running out. So we'll see how this progresses, how the diplomacy progresses maybe into something more. And regardless of the veracity of this report, the news of the UAE's disapproval may lead more Israelis to express their opposition to the judicial overhaul, Reinhold said. And this guy, Reinhold, what kind of expert is this guy? His name is Reinhold. The more signs there are of, not that someone named Reinhold couldn't be an expert, I'm just saying his name is Reinhold. He said, the more it encourages other people to oppose it and to oppose a legal coup, the more signs that there are of opposition to Netanyahu. Reinhold noted that with Netanyahu's majority in the Knesset and with upcoming elections several years off, Zionist public opinion about the judicial overhaul may have a relatively small impact on the process. And from Globe World News Echo, the president of UAE directs to provide $3 million to support the reconstruction of the Palestinian town of Hawara. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the state, directed to provide $3 million to support the reconstruction of the Palestinian town of Hawara and those affected by the recent events. The initiative will be implemented by the Department of Municipalities and Transport, Abu Dhabi, in cooperation with the Emirati Palestinian Friendship Club, as part of the UAE's humanitarian efforts to support the brotherly Palestinian people. The Department of Municipalities and Transport, Abu Dhabi, held a meeting to discuss the mechanism for implementing the initiative and providing support in the presence of Muhammad Ali al-Sharafa. Sharafa is the head of the department and the Palestinian delegation, which included Moeen Demaidi, mayor of Hawara Municipality, Jalal O'Day, and Mohammed Abdul Hamid, members of the Municipal Council, and Amar al-Kurd, president of the Emirati Palestinian Friendship Club. The meeting also discussed enhancing prospect for joint cooperation in the field of municipal work between the two sides. Mohammed al-Sharafa welcomed the brotherly Palestinian designation. Mohammed al-Sharafa welcomed the brotherly Palestinian delegation, stressing the interest of the UAE's wise leadership in supporting the Palestinian people and contributing to the redevelopment of the affected area in Hawara. Al-Sharafa said that the UAE's interest in supporting the brothers in Palestine stems from its firm stances in supporting the brothers and providing them with various forms of support. Yeah, and note that brother language there as well. Something to be recognized. And from Al Arabiya News, UAE orders provision of $3 million to rebuild West Bank village of Hawara. UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed has ordered the provision of $3 million to help rebuild the West Bank village of Hawara and support those affected after it was set ablaze by hardline Jewish settlers. The initiative, which is in line with the UAE's humanitarian efforts to support the Palestinian brotherly people, will be implemented through Abu Dhabi's Department of Municipalities and Transport in cooperation with the Emirati Palestinian Friendship Club, state news agency WAM reported on Thursday. Hawara, a Palestinian village near a major road checkpoint, has become the latest flashpoint between Zionists and Palestinians after months of worsening violence in the occupied West Bank. Scores of Israeli settlers went on a violent rampage in Hawara last month, setting dozens of cars and homes on fire after 2 settlers were killed by a Palestinian gunman there. The rampage prompted international condemnation, but Zionist government, which is made up of pro-settlement ultranationalists, expressed little outrage and only called on the perpetrators not to take the law into their own hands. However, some lawmakers went even further, including Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who said Hawara should be erased, but by state authorities and not by private citizens. And let's note that the state authorities enable the private citizens, that the state authorities literally accompany the private citizens, that the Zionist occupying government accompanies the Zionist occupiers. It's the definition of fascism. UAE halts military purchase from Israel amid political crisis facing Netanyahu. The United Arab Emirates has reportedly halted the purchase of advanced surface-to-air missile system from Israel amid political turmoil facing embattled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as anti-Palestinian remarks by 2 extremist Israeli ministers. The Arab-language Arabi 21 online newspaper, citing a report by Zionist Channel 12 television news, said the UAE's decision came in response to recent actions and statement by Zionist Israel's so-called National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The channel quoted Zionist sources as saying that the UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan has announced that the freeze on the deal. As long as we don't receive assurances that Zionist Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is able to control his administration, we cannot undertake common projects, Al Nahyan said. Protests have been snowballing in the occupied territories over the past 2 months since Netanyahu's controversial move to reform the judiciary. Back on September 22 last year, Reuters cited 2 sources as saying that Zionist Israel had approved a UAE request and would supply the Persian Gulf state with Rafael-made Spider mobile interceptors. A third source said the UAE had acquired Israeli technology capable of combating drone attacks like those that struck Abu Dhabi earlier last year. It was not clear how many interceptors, which are fitted to vehicles and can defend against short to long range threats, would be supplied, or if any had already been shipped. Back in 2020, the UAE and Bahrain signed U.S. brokered agreements with Israel to normalize their ties with the regime. Some other Arab states, namely Sudan and Morocco, followed suit soon afterwards. The normalization deals have sparked widespread condemnations from the Palestinians as well as nations and human rights advocates across the globe, especially within the Muslim world. Palestinians regard ministers of the new Israeli cabinet, especially Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, as racist and fascists for publicly advocating for the expulsion of Palestinians and the demolition of their homes, supporting Israeli extremists groups repeatedly attacking Palestinians and stirring incitement to racism against Arabs and non-Jews. Earlier this month, Smotrich caused an uproar when he said the Palestinian town of Huwara, south of Nablus, should be wiped out. I think the village of Huwara needs to be wiped out. I think Zionists should do it, he was quoted as saying by Zionist media outlets on March 1. Smotrich's remarks were met with condemnations from the European Union and many countries around the world as incitement of violence and terrorism. The Office of the European Union representative in Al-Quds condemned the remarks as unacceptable, saying they incite to indiscriminate violence in a situation which is extremely tense. On March 6, Ben-Gvir ordered Israeli forces to press ahead with the demolition of Palestinian homes that have reportedly been built without permits in occupied East Al-Quds during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. According to the Zionist public broadcaster Khan, the announcement came despite the fact that the occupying regime had not carried out home demolitions during Ramadan in the past years in order to avoid tensions with Palestinians and their subsequent retaliatory operations. Ramadan, during which Muslims fast from dawn to sunset, is set to start later this month. The Zionist daily newspaper Yediot Ahronoth said Zionist police warned Ben-Gvir that the fasting month of Ramadan could be extremely dangerous to implement the measure, as Palestinians are already stretched to the limit amid rising tensions across the West Bank. And from Tasnim news agency, Iran appoints new ambassador to UAE as ties improve. Iran's appointed a new ambassador to the United Arab Emirates, signaling a thaw in the country's diplomatic ties, according to Deputy Foreign Minister for Political Affairs Ali Bagheri Khani. Iran's appointed its new ambassador to UAE. The administrative procedure of his credentials is almost complete and will travel to Abu Dhabi in the near future, Bagheri Khani said. The announcement came as Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council Ali Shamkhani visited Abu Dhabi to strengthen economic and security cooperation between the two nations. During his visit, Shamkhani met with UAE's National Security Advisor Sheikh Tahnoun bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Shamkhani emphasized the importance of cooperation and convergence over hostility and divergence in resolving challenges forced by the region. The visit also comes after Iran and Saudi Arabia announced their decision to restore diplomatic relations, including reopening their embassies and diplomatic missions within 2 months. Neighboring Arab states have welcomed the rapprochement between the two regional powers. All right, watch this space. Remember, your engagement through a like, a share, and a subscribe will accelerate us at warp speed towards the continuation of our mission to truthfully go where no news will have been going before.
is obvious to the most simple-minded that Loci is of an inferior breed.
The obvious
the whole
visual
notion of
evidence,
logic.
Commissioner, is that he is of the same breed as yourself.
Are you blind, Commander Spock? Look at me.
The whole notion
I thought
of
you
logic.
scientists are supposed to keep an open mind.
There's a difference between keeping an open mind and believing something because you want it to be true.
Your friend
The whole
Spock
notion
is a
of
logical
logic.
man.
I find your arguments strewn with gaping defects in logic.
Most illogical reaction. We demonstrated our superior weapons. They should have fled.
The whole notion of logic.
Of course.
Mr. Spock, respect is a rational process. Did it ever occur to you
The
they
whole
might react
notion of
emotionally?
logic.
With anger?
Doctor, I'm not responsible for their unpredictability.
You do not think like the others. There are no colors to your patterns of logic. There's only
The whole
black and
notion
white.
of logic.
Logical, unemotional.
The whole
Completely
notion of
pragmatic.
logic.
And we poor irrational humans whipped them in a fair fight. Now you'll find yourself back among us illogical humans again.
The whole
which
notion
I find
of
eminently
logic.
satisfactory, Doctor. For nowhere am I so desperately needed. Because she feels. I don't. All I know is logic.
The whole
Will you
notion
try
of
to
logic.
understand how we feel about our life here? About each other?
Emotions are alien to me. I'm a scientist.
You're gonna leave here without them? Run off on some wild goose chase halfway across the galaxy just because you found a discrepancy in a hydrogen cloud?
Doctor, I'm chasing the captain, Lieutenant Uhura, and Ensign Chekhov, not some wild aquatic fowl.
Mr. Spock, you have a remarkably logical
The
and
whole
analytical
notion of
mind.
logic.
Thank you. I prefer the concrete, the graspable, the provable.